What's going on, everybody? I'm glad to be back making yet another deck profile for you all today. Today we're going to be trying to beat the meta with Metaphys. I know it's corny, but still, it's a fun rogue deck that I've been playing quite a bit recently on EDO Pro, and it has quite a good game against tier elements. Because of the fact that Di-Fi came back to 3 on this recent ban list, as well as Dimensional Shifter being in this format and us having access as well to Left Arm Offering, we're able to oftentimes get our plays started by banishing a Necroface using a Left Arm Offering to be able to search a floodgate that really does stop tier and graveyard decks at this point. Being able to do that on turn 1, you can usually stall on your turn 2 for your Metaphys to kick in, and then on turn 3 you can OTK using either a 0 Boros line or using Metaphys Ragnarok to summon a Tyrant Dragon and beating them for game. It's a very fun deck, very simple, but also has a very high skill ceiling with being able to predict what you might be able to mill and also being able to manage your extra deck resources since it is a very much toolbox deck for your extra deck. It is very fun. Unfortunately, it does have kind of the same problems as I would say tier, and you have to mill correctly. If you're not able to get an Aloof Lupine to be able to banish your Necroface, or being able to get a Gold Sark, or being able to banish a Necroface off of your Metaphys Ragnarok, oftentimes your plays can stall because it's very hard to get your banishes off if you're not using Necroface since it's such a good card being able to banish 5. And it can also chain into another Necroface and then chain into another one. If you're able to rip 15 cards from your opponent's deck and being able to rip their staples as well, oftentimes you can stop them from playing and being able to go into their core plays and being able just to win on your turn 3. Going second, the deck is a little bit harder to play. There's a lot of options you have to consider with being able to set up your boards and get the banishes correct. And the deck is kind of luck reliant with that, unfortunately. But we're trying to mitigate that as much as we can with Gold Sark, Left Arm Offering, and Aloof Lupine. I hope you guys will enjoy this deck profile, and let's get right into it. So we're first going to start off with our Metaphys package. We're going to be running 3 Metaphys Ragnarok. This is obvious, it's what gets our play started by banishing off our Metaphyses or the Trap, or being able to banish a Necroface. We're going to be playing 2 Decoy Dragon. Decoy Dragon's amazing as well. If it gets banished, it will come back during the next standby phase, and what it can do is it can banish itself if a monster is attacked. For example, if Metaphys Ragnarok is attacked, Decoy Dragon can banish itself either from the pen zone or from the monster zone to be able to summon a banished or a Metaphys from the graveyard, which is really good because you want to be able to summon out your Daedalus. We're playing 3 Daedalus. Daedalus is when it's banished during standby phase, it can shuffle itself back into the deck and be able to banish another Metaphys card, which will often be the Trap to be able to be an add. These are like your main combo plays that you want to be able to do. You want to be able to get your Metaphys Daedalus into rotation, being able to either get into your graveyard or being able to get it into the banish. And then you want to trigger your Decoy Dragon either from the pen zone or from the monster zone to be able to swap into a Daedalus and then banish all face-up special summon monsters. Other than that, we're also playing 2 Nemesis, and then we're playing 2 Tyrant Dragon. Nemesis is an add by shuffling itself back in, and then Tyrant Dragon special summons a monster from your hand, like a Metaphys. So oftentimes, if you're able to get all your banishes into rotation, you can add off Nemesis a Decoy Dragon and then special summon it off a Tyrant Dragon. Or if during your turn, if you banish some stuff, what you can do is you can get a Daedalus to hand and then summon it off a Tyrant Dragon to be able to banish all special summon monsters on the field. Unfortunately, the deck kind of has low amounts of interactions, so if they put up any amount of Omni Negates beyond maybe 1 or 2, you're in a very hard situation because you need the Daedalus to resolve. So besides this, I'm playing one more Metaphys card that's very questionable to say the least. I am actually playing a Metaphys Executor. Executor's not a good card, unfortunately. It requires you to banish 5 Metaphys cards with different names from your graveyard or face up on the field. It can't be destroyed or banished by card effects, and then once per turn, if your opponent controls more cards than you can target one of your banished Metaphys monsters and special summon it, but banish it during the end phase. So yes, it can summon a Daedalus to board wipe. It can summon a Nemesis to back row wipe. It is it can't be destroyed by battle, it can't be destroyed by card effect, and it can't be destroyed by, well, yeah, it can't be destroyed by card effect, and it can't be banished. But the hard part is the fact that you have to banish 5 Metaphyses, and if you're not getting your Metaphyses banished to begin with, you're playing the deck wrong, so this is kind of like a backup option in case we're not able to get our Defies online, or we're just forced to be able to have like Metaphys stuff in the graveyard and on field. It's an alright tech choice right now because of the fact that there is the Ishizu tier stuff, and they will mill stuff to your graveyard 10 cards. So if you have an Executor in hand and then they mill 5 Metaphys names, you can summon an Executor and get all your Metaphyses alive, which is pretty nice. That's why I'm only running it as a 1-of. You can cut it from the deck though. We're playing a total of 44, I believe, in the deck. So if you want to cut it down, get rid of the Executor. We're going to get into the Metaphys traps and spells. This is obvious. We're playing 3 Ace of Metaphys. What it does is it lets you banish a Metaphys card from your hand. If you do, draw 1 card. And then once per turn, if a Metaphys card is banished in its owner's possession, you can apply one of the effects. During your turn, all monsters on the field lose 5 higher attack and defense permanently, except Metaphys monsters. And during your opponents, you change the battle positions of all monsters on the field except Metaphys monsters. The secondary effects suck, I'm going to be honest. If you have 1 Ace in Metaphys, you're oftentimes doing your combos at the very start of the turn, so it really doesn't matter. You're not going to change their battle position if they're putting everything to attack, and then somehow you banish like a decoy dragon during their turn. You're not going to do that. This will usually, since it's mandatory, has to trigger off during like the beginning of the turn by doing your plays. So the second part doesn't really matter. The first part with regards to drawing the card is really important because you can banish the Metaphys trap, draw a card, and then add a card. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1, which is really nice. We're also running 1 Metaphys Factor. It's their field spell. I'm not a big fan of it. It says each turn 1 level 5 or higher Metaphys monster you control can be normal summoned without tributing, and then banish it during the end phase of the next turn, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your Metaphys monster's effect activations. So it basically prevents them from like negating your decoy dragon or Daedalus, which is pretty nice. I think 1 is more than enough because you can search it pretty easily in the deck, and it's good for follow-up. Then we're going to get off into the traps. We're playing 3 Metaphys Ascension. This is probably one of the better cards in the deck. It allows you to discard a Metaphys card, draw 1 card, and then banish a Metaphys monster from your deck. If you want to get some Metaphys stuff into rotation, Metaphys Ascension by dumping another Metaphys will get you 2 names into the grave, and then you can also banish a Metaphys, which gives you follow-up, and this will set up an Executor. But the more important fact is if this card is banished, you can add 1 Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, and unfortunately you can only use 1 of the effects per turn, which is the only bad part about it. Other than that, we're playing Double Dimension. Dimension's pretty good. If your opponent special summons a monster, you get to special summon a banished Metaphys back, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. And if your Metaphys card in its owner's possession is banished while this card's already face up on the spell and trap, you get to banish a monster they control or banish a card. Really good. The only issue I have with Dimension is the fact that it conflicts with Left Arm Offering because you can't set the turn that you activate Left Arm Offering. So that's the only difficult portion about it. That's our whole entire Metaphys package. Now we're going to get off into like the generic good stuff. We're playing 3 Aloof Lupine along with 3 Necrophase. You can play 3 Ash Blossom in addition to this, and then what you can do is you can Aloof Lupine, target Ash Blossom, banish Necrophase. I was thinking about that, but unfortunately the deck is really tight on space, so I wasn't able to do this. But your whole goal is you want to have Aloof Lupine plus Necrophase. That gives you basically 10 banish. It gives you 12 in total, technically. But you get 10 off Necrophase, 5 off the first Necrophase, 5 off the next Necrophase from the Aloof, and then hopefully you hit the last Necrophase and the 10 banish, and that gives you 15 banishes, and gets you your Metaphyses in rotation. To facilitate the Necrophase, I'm going to leave him up here to show you what we're using to facilitate. We're playing a Gold Sark, obvious, banish Necrophase. We're playing 3 Left Arm Offerings. The big issue I always had was the fact that I may not be able to banish a Necrophase in hand if I don't have an Aloof Lupine, which was the only problem that I was having. So that's why I added Left Arm Offering into the deck. So if you open even 2 Necrophases plus a Left Arm, that's full combo because you can Left Arm Offering, banish 2 Necrophases, add yourself a Dimensional Fissure, which we're playing 3 of, and then be able to banish 10, get your Metaphys into rotation, add Defy, and then be able to basically just plus off of that because I can't play with the graveyard anymore. As you can see, we're playing 3 Defy, and then we're also playing 3 Dimension Shifter. These 9 cards are basically our way to kind of stall the game out. Left arm is basically Dimensional Shifter. I consider it a Dimensional Shifter. We're not really setting that much. The only card that you actually want to set is Dimension, but you can wait a turn for that. You don't necessarily have to, the turn that you activate left arm. Dimension Shifter is basically a FTK in this format against tier. They can't play against it. And then Di-Fi is also a FTK if they can't get rid of it. They really need a specific hand. They need to open up spell and trap removal, or like, I think their trap can do something to it. But if they don't open any way to beat the Dimensional Fissure, you're just going to outpace them in the grind game. Metaphys is an insane grind deck because everything shuffles back. And funny enough, if you're playing against Runic, the Runic cards, by banishing your Metaphyses, will trigger them as well, and you just shuffle them back and continue playing. So a Runic player has a very difficult time decking you out, which is pretty cool as well. I feel like we're going to be able to see more Runic in this upcoming format since it's becoming such a cancer on Master Duel, and people will probably play it more often in like IRL. So this deck is actually pretty good against Runic. That's our generic like banish good stuff. We're playing another small package, which I absolutely love. It's what kind of boosts the deck above the 40 mark and why I can't play the Ash Blossoms, and it's actually a Nemesis package. We're going to be playing 2 Nemesis Corridor. I think 2 is more than enough. We're playing 2 Flag. We're playing 1 Keystone and 1 Eschatos. So it's a 6-card package. Keystone is how we grind out in the game. So basically, if you get to banish your Keystone, every single turn, your Keystone will start to get banished, it comes back, and then you can shuffle another card back into your deck. If you have Di-Fi up, it's always going to be able to get banished, which will allow you to continue to grind throughout the whole entire duel, because you're going to shuffle back a card every single turn and be able just to draw that shuffled back card. So you can never really deck out as long as your Keystone isn't negated. Flag allows you to add a Nemesis card, which you're going to oftentimes add Eschatos, and it also allows you to shuffle back a banished monster, which is really nice, so that allows you to grind. And then Corridor allows you to add a Nemesis that is banished. So I chose 2 Corridor and 2 Flag because I want Flag to either add Corridor if Eschatos is banished, or I want Flag to shuffle back the Eschatos to be able to add it off of another, like, for example, I would use Nemesis Flag, shuffle back Eschatos, be able to add Eschatos with the Flag again. But oftentimes you're just going to go Flag. If this is banished, what you're going to do is you're going to do Flag, shuffle back a card, add Corridor, Corridor, add Eschatos from the banished. And then what our funny thing that we're going to be doing, and this is what I absolutely love about this package, is we're going to be running a Reprodokus, and you're going to be able to use the Reprodokus off of the Corridor and the Flag to be able to change like a monster type. Well, you want to save your Reprodokus, you want to have something else in grave usually, and then what you're going to do is you're going to banish Corridor, Flag, and maybe another card if your cards aren't getting banished at this point, and summon out the Eschatos, and then you want to have the Eschatos under your Reprodokus, and then you're going to use Reprodokus to change your Eschatos's type to be able to say like Aqua or something like that, and you're basically just going to lock a type out for the rest of the game. It's a really good combo. I think it's very viable, especially if they get rid of your Di-Fi. If they get rid of your Di-Fi, a Flag into Corridor into Eschatos will usually win you the game, and I think it's a really good combo that I love. But that's our whole entire main deck done. The main deck is 44 cards. You might be able to cut certain things like the Executor, or you can cut the Nemesis package if you want, or maybe like reduce down like Dimension, like Metaphys Dimension, and your Metaphys ratios, but I think it's pretty necessary. With all these cards are very necessary. But we're going to go off into our extra deck. We're going to show our synchros first. We're running a Metaphys Horus. It's a level 6 synchro, can be summoned off of your Ragnarok plus a Decoy Dragon. It's pretty good when you synchro summon it using the Ragnarok plus Decoy, which is the only way you're ever going to make it. You get the effect where you can negate a card on the field, and then you also get one monster that your opponent controls, and they choosing to give it to you. We're also running a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, an Angel of Zera, Chang Ying, and Final Sigma. Angel of Zera's pretty good. It's always going to get banished as long as you have your Di-Fi up, or maybe like a Shifter. and then what you're going to do is it's going to come back every single turn, and it gains 100 attack for each of your opponent's banished cards, so it can help you OTK as well. Cheng Yang does a very similar thing where it gains 100 attack for each of your opponent's banished cards, and then they lose 100 attack. I don't oftentimes make the 10. It's kind of difficult. What you can do is you can do like Ragnarok plus Decoy plus Corridor or Flag, and that makes Cheng Yang, but I'm oftentimes not making him. He's kind of just a filler slot. And then Final Sigma is oftentimes our best boss monster, because a Ragnarok into a Tyrant Dragon will get you Final Sigma, and most decks can't get over it because it's unaffected by card effects. That's all of our synchros. I was also thinking about running the Psychic End Punisher, because Psychic End Punisher is an 11, and you can actually summon that off of Ragnarok plus Daedalus, but I chose not to run him because the extra deck, like, I didn't own a Psychic End Punisher, so I chose not to run him. We're gonna go off into our Link monsters, which is basically the rest of the deck. I explained Reproducus, it's for the Eschatos play. We're playing a Linkaribo to be able to link off our Nemesis Keystone. Yeah, it's to link off our Nemesis Keystone to be able to get it into the banish to be able to cycle. We're running a Nightmare Unicorn as well as a Nightmare Phoenix. Pretty generic stuff. The discard can allow us to be able to get our Metaphys to the grave if we have a Di-Fi up as well, or maybe a Dimension Shifter. Then we're going to go off into the Link 4s. We're running a Mechanite Crusadia Avermax because we can make it pretty easily using some extra deck stuff. A lot of decks can't get over it at this point, and then we're also running a Zero Boros. Zero Boros is our OTK choice for the deck. If we can get into Zero Boros and we have at least like 3 Necrophase triggers, that's game, because it's going to go to like 15k. Also, its other effect where it banishes everything on the field can be pretty useful if you have a Decoy Dragon coming back, or maybe a Tyrant Dragon summon, which is pretty cool. Funny enough, I'm also running a small Tenyi package in the extra deck. I'm running a Shaman of the Tenyi because the Metaphyses are worms. Shaman of the Tenyi will allow us to basically summon back a Ragnarok if it is in the graveyard, which is not bad. It allows you to also discard a card and be able to possibly get more material for your Executor. We're running Draco Masters of the Tenyi. It's just 2 monsters plus a Link monster, so it's pretty easy to make, especially if we have Linkaribo with a Keystone. It's pretty good with being able not to be destroyed by a battle with effect monsters. Some decks have problems being able to out that. And then since we would control no other effect monsters sometimes when we make this, because we're going to be using it for our whole entire board, we can destroy effect monsters our opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters we control are in our graveyard. The only non-effect monster that we possibly would have in our graveyard is actually a Berserker of the Tenyi. I have it as a generic Link because it's 2 monsters including a Link monster, which is pretty easy in this deck. And the main purpose for Berserker of the Tenyi is actually Tenyi Spirit, how you pronounce it? Sahasrara? Close enough. I butchered that pretty bad. It's just 2 worm monsters, but because of the fact that you can Berserker climb, which is pretty nice, it's just basically Berserker plus a Ragnarok or a Decoy Dragon to go into Sahasrara. Pardon my English, I don't know how to say it. And it allows you basically to have effect protection because you're going to summon a token of one of their monsters, and then your effect monsters can't be targeted for attacks and effects of effect monsters with, like, they can't target effect monsters on the field with card effects, which is pretty nice. But that's the whole deck. I really do enjoy Metaphys. I think it's a very good anti-meta option. You can top locals with it. It's funny because I looked at YGO top deck, and I'm pretty sure the only deck that's ever topped with Metaphys was in like Ohio in 2018 when it was weird. I looked at his deck profile and it was funny because it was only Di-Fi was at 1 at the time, but I think this deck could definitely top a regional if you play it correctly and you also get favorable matchups into like tier. Because this is basically a meta call. Very similar to Madolche in the sense that it really hurts tier, but it's bad against Sprite and bad against Flu. This deck doesn't really do much against Flu, unfortunately, and banishing stuff with Necrophase can get their Flus into rotation, which is the only bad part. But you can still OTK them using a Zero Boros because oftentimes you're not activating monster effects besides your Ragnarok, which is normal summoned. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. I'm hopefully going to be able to make a few more. I have a Spriggan's deck profile coming up soon when we have Photon Hypernova coming out. I just need the new XZ as well as the new spell. I also have a few more decks that I've recently rebuilt. I'm also waiting to show you guys a rebuild of the Ninja deck when Photon Hypernova comes out, because when Geo and the Yagura Maru, the Contact Fusion for Ninjas, come out, the deck is such a good grind deck and control deck. It's even better than this. And I'm not a big fan of control decks, but I really do love grind decks because it slows the pace down and makes it really fun to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I think basically turns it back into old school. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.